Chapter 28, Part 5, Satellites of Other Planets. This image is an image of the 4 Galilean moons of Jupiter. They are obviously the 4 largest and 4 of the moons that are closer to Jupiter. Prior to the 1600s, we thought Earth was the only planet with a moon, but in 1610, Galileo used his telescope and discovered 4 moons orbiting Jupiter. Since then, we know there's a lot more. 6 planets in our solar system, but not Mercury and Venus, have moons. The inner planets have either no moons or just a few. The outer planets have a lot of moons, and they have rings. The moons of Mars, Phobos and Deimos, are considered to be captured asteroids, mainly because they're really small and because of their shape. Deimos is kind of round and an icy type of moon, icy looking moon. Phobos, on the other hand, is shaped like a loaf of bread, and it has a big hole on one end due to a crater. This is an image showing where Phobos and Deimos are with regards to Mars. Phobos is much closer to Mars, and actually, in its lifetime, it will end up crashing and being pulled in by gravity, getting pulled into the surface of Mars. The moons of Jupiter, we know 67 of them so far. The 4 largest, as I said earlier, are called the Galilean moons. They were first seen by Galileo in 1610. Io is the closest of the 4 to Jupiter. It is the only satellite that we know to have active volcanoes, lava flows, and volcanic craters. It is the most geologically active moon in our solar system. Boy, is that a test question. This image, this is actually a photograph with a farther away and a close-up on the geyser showing the activity that occurs on Io. And yes, the surface of Io it looks like a pizza. Here it is in black and white. Look at the size of that geyser. Jupiter's great red spot and the Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto. And this shows a little bit more about each one of them. Io with the surface, like I said, looking like a pizza. Europa with its cracked, icy surface. That icy surface covers a thick layer of water. We believe there is a liquid ocean underneath that ice. Ganymede and Callisto. The moons and rings of Saturn. The rings are basically rock and ice. It has at least 62 moons. Titan, the largest, has a thick nitrogen atmosphere. This is Saturn's moon, Hyperion. Looks like a loofah sponge. The moons of Uranus and Neptune. Uranus, remember, Uranus is tilted over 90 degrees. It lays on its side as it goes around the sun. It has at least 27 moons and rings, not 27 rings. And 5 of those moons can be seen easily from Earth: Titania, Umbriel, Miranda, Ariel, and Oberon. Neptune has 13 moons and has rings. Triton, one of the moons, revolves backwards around Neptune. This is the only satellite that we know to have this kind of retrograde motion. Pluto, although it's not a planet, we're going to talk about it here. It is a dwarf planet, and it does have 5 moons: Charon, Hydra, Nix, Styx, and Kerberos. Charon is in a synchronous orbit around Pluto. This means that Charon is always over the exact same spot of Pluto, almost like they can't take their eyes off each other. Charon's orbit takes exactly 1 Pluto day. Hydra and Nix were recently discovered. The New Horizons probe that was launched in 2006 explored the dwarf planet Pluto and its moons in a flyby back in 2015. Jupiter. The rings of the gas giants. Yes, Jupiter has rings. It has one major thin ring made of tiny rock particles, but we have found since then that there's more than one ring around Jupiter. Not many, though. Jupiter's ring is very hard to see from Earth because it doesn't have a lot of material in its ring, the major ring, and because the ring material are made of rock. So they don't reflect light that well. The first ring was found when the Voyager probe moved beyond Jupiter and took a picture back toward the sun. Then we saw the rings. Saturn. Saturn has the very distinctive rings that were discovered over 300 years ago. Each of the rings circling Saturn is divided of hundreds of small ringlets. Saturn's rings are made of ice and some rock, which makes it highly reflective. That ice really throws that sunlight back to us. The rings of the gas giants. Uranus also has a dozen thin rings. Remember, Uranus is on its side, so it looks like a giant frisbee rolling down toward us going around the sun. And Neptune also has rings. What makes Neptune's rings unusual is they're clumpy. They're not pretty like Saturn's rings are. This is the end of Chapter 28, Part 5, Satellites of the Other Planets. Please continue with Chapter 28, Part 6.